I'm not really gonna sip this, it is boiling hot. It is autumn officially. It is October, like what, 4th when I'm filming this right now. So I have some atmospheric autumn reads for you guys. I'm really excited to be getting to this today. I've had a few books on my radar, like kind of like building up in my mind for a while now. Around this time last year, there were a couple books that I had read, and when I thought to this year, I was like, you know what, there are some really great books that I would love to recommend to you guys. I do have some audiobooks in here, so I'm gonna start with the audiobooks first. And the first audiobook I'm gonna start with is quite a classic that I think a lot of people are going to be recommending for this autumn-fall season, and that is, of course, Sadie by Courtney Summers. So this book is about Sadie, whose younger sister Mattie was brutally attacked and then killed, and her killer was never found. And Sadie believes she knows who the killer is, so she decides to go off and hunt her little sister's killer. Well, at the same time, we are following a podcast, a true crime podcast, that is following Sadie's disappearance because Sadie has not been heard from ever since she left to look for her sister's killer. It is a very hard-hitting book. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this. Ever since I listened to Sadie in audiobook, I have just fallen in love with audiobooks. I think it's a great way to consume contemporary mystery thriller books. And Sadie is amazing because you have a full cast, and the podcast aspect of this book is just so phenomenal to listen to. It just gives you the exact atmosphere like you were listening to something that is happening real time, and you will finish this book. It does have a little bit of an open ending, and I do have my own thoughts as to how it ended. They're not very positive thoughts, but it was just such a phenomenal book and such an easy 5 out of 5 stars. So if you guys for some reason have not picked this up, I would really recommend it because it's not too spooky, but it will definitely get you into like the autumnal feels. So the next book I have to talk to you guys about is All These Beautiful Strangers, which I also listened to on audiobook. This is kind of a boarding school mystery thriller YA-ish book, but it's actually a lot more than that. So we follow 17-year-old Charlie, whose mother, Grace Fairchild, went missing years ago at their lake house. Fast forward to present day, we have Charlie, who has just begun attending Knollwood Prep, which is this infamous boarding school that her father attended, and she has recently become part of the A's, which is the kind of it crowd secret society that goes on there. Now, in order to become an official member of the A's, there is a pledging process where the initiates have to go through a series of tasks. And it is throughout these tasks that Charlie begins to uncover what happened to her mother all those years ago and the secrets that Knollwood has been keeping all these years that surround it. And as a result, we end up following not only Charlie's POV, we also follow Grace Fairchild's POV and also her father's POV, whose name I don't remember. And it's really interesting that you're following Charlie current day, but you're also getting like slight flashbacks to when Grace and Charlie's father first met and how their whole relationship developed and what really occurred and the whole past that's going on. It's a very intricately woven story, and it's very beautifully written. It can feel a little bit slow at times, and I will admit that the voice that does Grace Fairchild can sometimes be a little bit annoying, but at the same time I really enjoyed it. I would actually recommend you could even just pick it up normally. I actually think that I would love to reread this book. I love the idea of, you know, secret societies that are a part of a school, and, you know, murders that happen years earlier and missing people, and that whole like atmosphere it creates is just something that I'm a huge fan of. And it was a book that I just felt myself being very drawn into, and I felt like I really understood who all these characters were, and it was just very well fleshed out, and the prose in it was just phenomenal, and it was just a very interesting book into a look on the human psyche as well. So that's why I would really recommend it for like this atmospheric autumn months. I then want to recommend Lies You Never Told Me, and I also listened to this on audiobook, and I think that's actually a phenomenal way to consume this book, and that is just because we follow 2 different point of views that take place on 2 different sides of the world. Not the world, of the United States of America. Wow, Madison, nice one. So we follow Elise, who lives in Portland, Oregon, who has just recently auditioned with her best friend for the play Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. I don't know why I had to distinctively tell you it was Shakespeare, everyone knows that. But when she auditions, she doesn't really think much of it, and she ends up actually getting the lead role of Juliet, and with that she ends up capturing the attention of the new drama teacher, and that is just kind of sparks a forbidden relationship that begins to occur. We then also follow Gabe, who is living in Austin, Texas, and he has been in a relationship with the most popular girl in their school for a few years now, but he has recently broken up with her because she has a very short temper and can be quite emotionally abusive. However, when he breaks up with her, she will do anything in her power to get him back, even if that means destroying the people around him or hurting him herself. So I would say this book is definitely more of a psychological suspense novel. It really delves into the idea of the decisions you make in relationships, emotionally abusive relationships, and relationships that just take a very huge mental manipulative toll on you. This is a book that will be hard for people who have been through those kind of relationships, so I do want people to take caution with that. But it was something that was unlike anything I'd ever read before. We do have this taboo relationship between a student and a teacher, and just kind of watching the manipulation that occurs between someone of an older partner with a younger partner, as well as seeing the manipulation that occurs with Sasha and Gabe as she kind of emotionally manipulates him with threats and kind of has this whole two-faced personality. And then you kind of slowly watch and see how these storylines eventually come together and how they kind of collide. And the way that that happens was just one of the biggest shocks I have ever had in a book ever. It really caught me off guard. I was driving home, I think it was when I was driving home from the Debarring Gray signing, so it was like really late at night when I was driving, and I literally like had to pause the audiobook because the plot twist just threw my mind for such a spin. I was like, what? Oh, it was so good. So I really recommend this, and I find that I don't have enough people talking about this book. I feel like I've seen it pop up here and there, but it definitely deserves a lot more recognition. And just the kind of atmosphere it creates with this psychological suspense and the mood it is just kind of an atmospheric fall book. There's a reason why I'm not calling this like a cozy fall TBR, because these books ain't cozy. I cannot have an atmospheric autumn reads list without mentioning Riley Sager. I am absolute trash for Riley Sager. He is one of my most beloved mystery thriller writers ever, and I find that he seems to get subsequently better with each of his books. His first book is Final Girls, which is about these three girls who are the sole survivors of these mass massacres. They are the only ones who have survived, and they're known as Final Girls by the media, and that's what this one follows. You follow a specific final girl as, you know, some things kind of come back to haunt her, and you actually end up finding more and more about the night of the massacre that happened for her. I do think that of all of Riley Sager's books, this is the weakest one of his, but it is also his debut. What I really loved about this was that you had flashbacks to the night of the massacre, and that was like my favorite part of this book. It kind of was like Scream-esque. The next book of his is The Last Time I Lied. This is about a girl who ends up returning to her summer camp years later, which is because it was shut down the last year she was there, since three of her friends went missing one night and were never found again. So she's now back, and she's kind of back because she wants to rehash those old feelings and kind of find out what happened to her friends. And you find out, oh my god, the ending of this one, I listened to it in the airport on the way back to Australia over Christmas, and I was making all these like weird faces in the airport. My mum was like, Madison, you need to stop making weird faces. All the other people in the lounge are staring at you. And I was like, but mom, this book. So that really got me. And then this is Riley Sager's most recent book, Lock Every Door. This one is phenomenal because it is the most messed up out of all of his books so far. I listened to the first two in audiobook, but I obviously read this one physically because it was an ARC. I actually got to meet Riley Sager, and I like totally fangirled, and it was just an amazing experience. But I love this book. It's about a girl who ends up becoming an apartment sitter, but she gets paid to be an apartment sitter in this very prestigious New York apartment that kind of has a few eerie aspects and rumors surrounding it. And when one of the other apartment sitters ends up going missing, she starts looking into it and kind of finds out there's a lot more sinister things going on in the underbelly of this apartment complex. I was thrown for a loop. I kept thinking I knew what was happening, and I would guess some things but then not guess other things, and in the end I was like, wow, that is really, really messed up. Like, out of all the books, like, this one is just effed up, guys. Like, it is so like, oh my god, it is crazy, and I loved it. I would love to see this adapted into like some kind of like a short form like series or something like that, like I think this would be phenomenal. Like it is just so interesting. So it was just such an awesomely atmospheric read. Like he is the height of atmospheric reads to me. Okay, it's called down enough now. I just like went to go take out the tea bag, but it doesn't taste very pumpkin spicy. Pumpkin spice rubus, more like just spiced rubus. It doesn't taste any different from normal rubus tea. So I have 3 more books to talk to you guys about. First one is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Kerri Maniscalco, in case you didn't know. I really like the series. Klehfoth is one of my most top OTPs of the entire time, and I adore Audrey Rose Wadsworth and Thomas Cresswell as individual characters. They're both amazing as all heck, and still need to read the last book in the series that just came out, and that is Capturing the Devil. It's the 4th book. There are 4 books and a novella that occurs in between the 3rd and 4th book. That's what I'm up to currently, is the novella. And Stalking Jack the Ripper follows Audrey Rose Wadsworth. This is set, oh, what year is this set? 1888. I love books that are set in the 1800s. But what I really love, so we have Audrey Rose, and she's born to a very affluent family, and she's kind of expected to be a proper lady as that is in this time. However, this is set in London, and her uncle is actually a mortician, and he does, you know, cuts open the dead bodies and things like that. And so she is actually wanting to follow in his footsteps. Audrey is very into science and into anatomy and the body, and wants to also dissect the dead bodies and be like well, he's like a forensic scientist as well, I kind of guess. But that is what Audrey as well wants to be. So she kind of does that secretly on the side, and what ends up happening is the Jack the Ripper bodies actually end up landing on her uncle's table, and so Audrey ends up getting kind of pulled into these murders, and Thomas Cresswell is the other top student of her uncle's, and so the 2 of them end up kind of looking into these mysteries together after they kind of begin to get dragged into it on personal levels. And it's just really fun. So the 1st book follows on Jack the Ripper, the 2nd book follows the story of Prince Dracula, the 3rd book follows the story of Houdini, and the 4th book follows the story of, oh shoot, it's set in like the Chicago World Fair, but I have no idea who the actual, like what killer it is based off of. That was like the whole idea, is that like no one actually knows who the killer is based off of that we're following for that one. The next book I want to recommend is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha and Ngan. The reason why I'm saying this is A, because I read it in November of last year, and I don't know, there's just something about this book that gives me like an atmospheric autumn read. It just does. I don't really know how to explain it. I think it's just because it follows quite dark topics. It's about ḻeɪ, who is in this world where there are different castes, and she is in the lowest caste, the paper caste, which means she has no magic ability. The 2nd caste is like half demon, half human, and the 3rd caste is like all demons. And there is this demon king, and every year he takes on a certain number of concubines, and ḻeɪ ends up being forcibly chosen as one of the concubines because of her gorgeous eyes, which are like on this cover, and they're like so beautiful. And what ends up happening is ḻeɪ doesn't really want to be a concubine, but if she speaks out, her family will be punished. And while she's there, she ends up actually falling in love with one of the other concubines, and there is a female-female romance, and there's also this rebellion brewing. And it's very beautiful, but it is very much on the topic of sexual assault and rape, and because, you know, you got the concubines and the demon king, and it is quite tough to read at times, but it's also so beautifully written, and I just think that it feels like a really, it's just, I would say this is a really good like November book, more than like an October spooky like book. It's definitely like a November, like when the nights get darker and it's like that mood outside. It's my fantasy book recommendation, you guys. And then I cannot have an atmospheric autumn reads list without mentioning The Debarring Gray by Christine Lynn Herman. If you guys have been on my channel for a while now, you will know that I am absolutely obsessed with Christine Lynn Herman and the Debarring Gray series. I got to read an arc of this book. I then literally drove 8 hours in one day just to go meet her on her debut day, and she's just absolutely phenomenal. But The Debarring Gray is about this town where there were these 4 founding families, and these 4 founding families each have their own kind of magical power, and they use their power years and years ago to trap this demon pretty much in this alternate reality of their world called the Grey. So if you venture into the forest, you end up essentially venturing into the alternate reality of the Grey. And in the coming years, the Grey has been getting stronger and stronger, and the monster inside has kind of been threatening to release and has been killing more and more people. Nowadays, what we have is we have Violet, and she is a descendant of one of the 4 founding families. And after her sister's death, her and her mother end up returning to 4 Pass to kind of restart their lives again. However, Violet ends up getting sucked in with the other 4 founding families and ends up getting sucked into this whole mystery of what's going on with the Grey and the truth behind it all. So we have Violet Saunders, we have Justin Hawthorne, who is a legitimate human golden retriever. We have Harper Carlisle, who actually is missing an arm, so we do have disability rep in there, and how she has kind of been learning to still, like, you know, sword wield and all these things over the past couple of years, and she dealing with the trauma of when she lost her arm and kind of becoming an outcast because of that. Justin has a lot of, you know, pressure put upon him to be like the golden boy of this town. And then last but not least, we have Isaac Sullivan, who on the night of his magic ritual ended up decimating half of his family home, and his family ended up fleeing and leaving him alone. So he's kind of been like orphaned, and he's very traumatized by what happened that night and never spoke of it. And those are our 4 little children. We also have Justin's sister, May, who we'll be following as a POV in the next book, which I'm really excited about. But I really enjoyed this book, and it was very touching to me, and I sped through it and absolutely adored it. So those are my atmospheric autumn reads. I don't even know how many books I talked about. I kind of talked about way more than I was originally planning to, but let me know if any of these books kind of piqued your interest, if you agree with me, if there are any books that you think should be on this list that I should maybe be on the lookout for to try and read myself in the upcoming months so that I can make a new list next year. But yeah, that's all for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, thanks a bunch, guys. Bye!